What's up, guys? Mott here alongside Josh Davis. Happy Wednesday, Wednesday Linc Live as we are finishing up the bye week. As Philadelphia, they haven't talked to us the past couple of days, Josh. They're finally going to practice tomorrow. We're going to have some fresh footage tomorrow, but it feels like Monday night against the Chiefs cannot come soon enough. It's the game of the year. It's getting a little bit of national media hype. It's not as much as I would have thought. Are you surprised by that?
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised. It's probably what you alluded to, or like you alluded to, with the fact that we haven't gotten much to go off of, because we were talking about this before the show. We've been texting all week of, hey, press conference, a soundbite, a clip, anything from the team. And it's like, hey, you know what? Good for them. I'm happy if we could get a bye week, get some rest, get players healthy, which we know that's happening. But yeah, it feels a little odd, not gonna lie. We're sitting here on a Wednesday when normally it's like, hey, we've had 1 or 2 days worth of news and stories and build up to the game. And it's hardly anything. I mean, we'll get into, I'm sure, the Jordan Mailata and the game being personal, and who the game is personal to. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's not felt like the buildup quite yet. However, I mean, there's still some time, as we know. So I'd imagine that if we get them back tomorrow, you get the press conferences, the news, the sound bites, players practicing and everything else, and this thing's going to skyrocket. I mean, let's just face it, the NFL knows what they're doing. So even though maybe there hasn't been quite the level of promotion, it'll be through the roof by the time that we get to Monday night. You could guarantee it, because with a Super Bowl rematch leading the conferences, Jalen and Patrick Mahomes, the Kelsey Bowl, the brothers, I mean, it can't get any bigger. So maybe it's a little bit of a lull right now, but it will get to a heightened extent the further we get. That's for sure. I can guarantee it.
You mentioned all the reasons to get excited. You forgot to mention the fact that Taylor Swift's parents are meeting Travis Kelce's parents as well. That's the big news of the day.
How could I forget that?
Goodness gracious.
Gosh.
I will say this, though. We talk about this gauntlet of a schedule, and it starts with the Chiefs, right? I mean, you get through Dallas, bye week, then the Chiefs start. If you beat Kansas City on Monday night, like if you actually beat Kansas City on Monday night, you are going to have a real shot to at least go 3-1, maybe even 4-1 if you want to include the Seahawks game, because every single team on this gauntlet has had their serious list of issues. Kansas City's offense is not as good as it was last year. Their defense is better. Their offense is worse. The Buffalo Bills are an absolute dumpster fire right now. They're 5-5, and they might miss the postseason. Then you go to San Francisco, who looked good against Jacksonville, but had lost 3 straight. Are they going to continue with a hot streak, get cold again? Dallas is always Dallas. Yeah, well, the media does. And then, of course, Seattle doesn't have a quarterback. So there's a real chance to get this gauntlet off and running here. And if the Eagles go with 1 loss the next 5 games, you're going to finish with maybe 3 losses if you rest somebody the final week. Maybe, although I would still take Marcus Mariota over Tommy DeVito in a final week 18 matchup, whatever it is. I'm very, very excited about it. I cannot absolutely wait. And I know a lot of people are joining us here right now as well. Donatella Dragon, what's up, fellas? Donatella?
What's up?
Mushu Dragon, you guys look like your last names could be Sirianni, LOL. Do we kind of look like Nick Sirianni? Kind of.
Okay.
Kind of.
Well,
I don't think
hey,
that much.
All right.
It's interesting.
I've gotten a couple times. I'll take it as a compliment, I suppose. But yeah, I'm with you. I agree. I'm just talking about it. I mean, looking ahead, and we've mentioned this on several of our shows, but you're talking about, obviously, you go in, you look at the schedule that we have, the gauntlet or the supposed gauntlet. I mean, we'll see. Obviously, we will know very quickly over these next several weeks, but they're going to be tough games. We've both said it. You're not going to win them all. There's going to be a loss in there. I mean, if there's not, you know what, I'll gladly say I was terribly wrong, and we're looking fantastic if that's the case. But there's probably going to be at least 1 loss in there. But no, I mean, overall, you like the schedule. You like the way that it plays out. You get tested now. You're coming off of a bye week where guys are going to get healthier. That's fantastic news. I mean, if you could have picked before the season, when do you want your bye? You're probably not picking a better matchup or a better time. You get it right after the Dallas game, get ready to go, get a little bit healthier. So I think it's a perfect setup there. The question really just becomes, like you're talking about, or kind of alluding to, I mean, who is that main competition? Because honestly, if you look at just the schedules, and I say who is that main competition, more so for the 1 seed. I don't mean necessarily for the playoffs, because if I was to pick a team, I don't think I would say Detroit is the top competition. Like, they don't scare me as much as some other teams might in the NFC. But for that number 1 spot, I mean, I think Detroit has a legit shot. As crazy as that sounds to say out loud and actually, voice that, Detroit and their schedule, I mean, it's not that difficult. And so, if we slip up a little bit more than expected, you could be looking at Detroit getting that number 1 spot. How crazy would that be?
Yeah, and where's the loss here, right? I have it up on the screen. They have Chicago this weekend, Green Bay, both at home, at New Orleans, who are an absolute mess. They'll fire their coach. Chicago again. Then they get Denver, who they're winning, but Denver doesn't scare me, right? Denver's not good. They're not going to win a playoff game, but they're winning games, which is better than they did last year. Minnesota's fun. Does Josh Dobbs continue to stay hot? Big question mark there. At Dallas on Monday night could be the real determiner, especially if Philadelphia loses one of the next 4 games. You got to kind of, make sure that you don't finish up with more losses. And then Minnesota again. So you are right. I do think that in terms of the 1 seed, this is your biggest threat. And we can look at the 49ers schedule here in just a little bit, but they don't scare me the most. I do think San Francisco is the quote-unquote scariest team when they're the healthiest. They got Debo back against the Jacksonville Jaguars, Trent Williams back as well. They're playing good football, but as we continue to say, and we'll get to some questions here in just a second, going through the link and to the link versus going to Ford Field or going to Levi Stadium or going to Jerry World is a big, big difference. And I think if we can just lock up that 1 seed, Philadelphia's going to be in a very, very good spot to at least advance to the NFC title game at minimum, because you just have to win 1 game to go ahead and get there. Which, speaking of Jerry World, Josh and I will be at that game. We have bought tickets. We will be there.
We shall.
My mother will be there as well. That was her birthday present from me, and we are super excited for that one.
There you go.
If you guys are going to the Eagle-Cowboy game, let us know, because we will definitely be there. Okay, let's go to some questions here. Dan the Man says, what are you guys' thoughts on Bradley Roby and Cam Jurgens coming back from IR? Will they be game changers? And Owen also asked about Bradley Roby. Roby, technically, if you look at his PFF grade, it's not that good. Like, it's in the, 40s cover grade? I think it's pretty low, but it's a very limited sample size, and I do think he will have an impact. He's built like a nickel cornerback, right? The problem with Eli Ricks in the nickel, he's not built like a nickel cornerback. Nickels aren't tall, long, lengthy. They're, outside guys. That's kind of what you expect. And while Ricks has had success against the more shiftier nickel cornerback players, like a CeeDee Lamb, or nickel cornerback receivers, slot receivers, like a CeeDee Lamb, maybe like a Deebo Samuel, he could struggle, and he did struggle in that Dallas Cowboy game, whereas Roby's more built like it. Now, he's a lot older, so we'll see if he can go ahead and sustain it and also get back to being healthy and stay healthy. But I do think getting Roby back, and Justin Evans, who we have completely forgotten about even existing, was very good and was on the field for a lot of the Eagles' turnovers early on in the season. I think both of their additions, at worst, are good depth pieces to have for a playoff run, but I think you're going to see them mixed in there because Desai has proven he's not just stuck with 11 guys. He rotates 13, 14, 15 different players along the defensive line, the linebacker spot, and back there in the secondary.
Yes, lots of rotation as we've seen. Some of it, maybe by choice, and others just by the fact that you don't have many guys and we have the injuries. So yeah, I'll be interested to see that. But I mean, I agree. Honestly, DeShero here says Roby back is big. Beef jerky is even more important. So we can get into the whole, offensive line to look at the run game. But I agree with both of those sentiments. But yeah, like you say, I mean, Bradley Roby, very small sample size. He wasn't with the defense for too long, so I don't know that I would necessarily go based off of, again, PFF grade is kind of take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes I think it means something. Other times, whatever. I test. I'm going to go off of that more. But yes, I think that getting him in there more solidified, you have the extra time to build that continuity and get guys kind of on the same page. I think that you're hopefully, I am optimistic. Now, this is the prove it to me stage of the schedule, but we really need to see that because you're going up against some really good quarterbacks and some really good offenses. And so, you talk about battle tested, you've seen some weaknesses on the pass defense. Mm-hmm. If you can somehow come out of this gauntlet of a schedule and you won 3 of the games, 3-2, something like that. I mean, I think that's a great recipe there because you're saying, hey, you know what? There were some weaknesses. You shore up some other areas, but Bradley Roby, I think, will be a big contributor in that. So as we know, I mean, this defense lives and dies by the pass rush. That will always be what it is. But yes, I think you can get a little bit more, especially with Bradley Roby there, because he just looks more comfortable in that slot position, like you mentioned. Mm-hmm. Now, at times, it may be a little different because depending on matchup, I'm sure we'll see Kevin Byard on Travis Kelce quite a bit if they move Kelce to the slot. But just in general speaking, as I think a lot of us see, Bradley Roby should be the guy in the slot and cover him from that side. So we'll see.
It does feel like Kelce's the guy to circle. I mean, we can make fun of Taylor Swift being there or not, but Travis Kelce against Philadelphia historically has done a very good job. The Super Bowl, he had 6 catches for 88 yards and a touchdown or something crazy like that. He's been a problem, and he's been the main problem for Philly because they haven't had a guy to really cover him, right? The past couple of times they played, they've moved a lot of linebackers, safeties, they put cornerbacks on him at times. Byard feels like he was brought for this exact matchup, and you can make the argument he's been brought for all of the tight end matchups because you will play Kittle, you will play Dalton Kincaid of the Buffalo Bills, and you will play, potentially in a Super Bowl, Mark Andrews. It feels like this is Byard's chance coming off of the bye week, and I ripped him a little bit last week and people got on me saying he needs more time, which is fine. He's had the time now. I mean, at this point, you got to show up. And I do think one-on-one against Travis Kelce, this is why you were brought in. And if they can slow down Kelce, this is not a dangerous offense. It really isn't. Now, let me preface that. Andy Reid with a bye week. You have the greatest quarterback on earth. Those makes dangerous. But name a receiver, right? Are you afraid of Sky Moore? Are you afraid of Kadarius Toney, who's been non-existent? I know he's been on my fantasy bench all year long. Are you afraid of Isaiah Pacheco, who runs hard, but is he scary? No, they're not as good as they were last year. And as long as the Eagle offense moves the football on a very good and highly improved Chiefs defense, then Philadelphia should win this game. I feel more confident about the Chiefs at Arrowhead than I do Philadelphia at home versus the 49ers right now. I really do. If I had to pick the loss, I would say the Niners versus the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're on the road versus being at home. If I had to
with
pick.
The way the teams are playing, I'm probably with you because again, we talked about it too. I mean, you also have the extra, personal motivation. Jordan Mailata saying he still hasn't gotten over the Super Bowl. He hasn't watched any of the film besides the corrections. And I mean, I don't blame him. Like, how many of us really have gone back and wanted to watch any of that? I mean, any part of it, even the Kelce doc. I will admit, I kind of suffered through parts of it, but I didn't watch the entire thing. But I know a lot of people, and you've probably seen him as well, in the comment section say, nope, I turn it off. I can't watch it. And I get it. So to have that extra motivation, I mean, Hassan Reddick also circled the calendar saying the Chiefs is one of the two games, the Niners being the other one because all the smack that they talk, but the Chiefs being the game as the extra motivation. So I think that, we come out. I mean, we've got, and by the way, real quick, if you haven't hit the like button, everybody please do that. Helps out with the algorithm. Andrea Bland says, hey guys. Hey, Andrea, what's up?
Andrea, what's up?
That leads into, though, the question, talking about the motivated coming out strong. So there's a Mushu Dragon says, my fear is that we come out flat after the bye. And he says that's happened in the past. But DeShiro says, I doubt we come out flat. Sirianni is a motivator. Now, you talked about Sirianni calling Andy Reid in the past and kind of getting some tips from him how to handle the bye. And we've seen Sirianni be really good coming out of the bye. But is there any concern? I don't think I have any. But do you have any concern at all of this team coming out flat from the bye?
I mean, you could. It's so hard to know. And this goes back to preseason. Should you play people? Should you not play people? And Nick Sirianni said after the week 1 matchup against the New England Patriots, he will never not play his starters at least some point during preseason because he thought that they looked flat. Now, that's very different from not playing at all during preseason and training camp and, the summer versus playing 9 weeks, then taking 1 week off and then getting back into it. I don't think they'll be slow. Philadelphia has done a fantastic job the past couple of weeks behind Brian Johnson, who everybody was criticizing. Everybody and their mother, including us, were criticizing the play call for Brian Johnson. He has schemed up some of the best opening drives the past 4 weeks that we have seen, and really opening drives after halftime as well. The 2 points that Steichen was really good at, especially that third quarter drive. And it's been different. It's been a lot better. And so I'd be surprised if he does. I'm more interested to see what Sean Desai is going to go ahead and do. Now that he has basically the healthiest defense he's had all season long, I know that, they're still missing pieces and people have been in and out, but I do think that this is probably the healthiest that he's been. And Desai has shown at times that he can scheme really well. Whatever he did against the Miami Dolphins, whatever he saw against the Miami Dolphins was his best week. That was a absolute defensive clinic. That is a very scary offense. Now, it's a scary offense that does struggle at times, and they kind of seem to be a little fool's goldy, but that was the best offensive test you've had besides Dallas, and they looked great against the Miami Dolphins. And they looked good against the Cowboys for portions, not the full 4 quarters that it was Miami. I'm more interested in the size start versus the offensive start. I think the offense is going to be just fine.
I agree. Yeah. I don't think you're going to see too many of the trip ups. And to your point, I mean, the Eagles offense is number 1 in the NFL on the opening drive. If you look at the yardage wise gained, it is number 1 in the NFL. So to your point, I mean, the scripted, and as most people probably know, I mean, the first drive is scripted. It's completely scripted. You know what you're going to try to run, what you're going to try to do move down the field. So kudos to Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts and all the offense to say, here's what we're doing. Here's game plan to start out the game. Let's move down the field so they can get the ball moving. They're starting to be better in the red zone. That's a great news, because early on, I know the panic is like, oh my gosh, this red zone offense. And I would still hold to, I think we all would still hold to, the play calling was not great, but Brian Johnson, give him a little time. He's figured it out. It's been a little bit better. So I agree on that side. But yeah, with Desai, it's like we keep on talking about it. I feel like he makes really good adjustments, and we've seen that a number of times, especially you go into halftime, and we can look at, the Washington game, we look at the Rams game, we can look at the Vikings game. I mean, there's other instances where it's like, okay, Are we going to stop anything? Are we going to change anything
Yeah.
to try to negate a little bit of the middle of the field, or if they're doing screen passes or whatever they're doing with checkdowns, and we see a little bit of an improvement, or maybe even a lot in certain cases. But the only game, like you're talking about there, that I would agree of saying, okay, for just about the entirety, or maybe even the entirety, if you want to say, was the Miami game. Sure, you're going to give up some points. It's a great offense. But other than that, it seems to be we start out on the defensive side of the ball like, all right, well, they're just going to continue to move down the field. There's not going to be as much doing until you get into the second half. And again, kudos to Desai for making those adjustments. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if we see very similar. Because I mean, we know Andy Reid. You give him a bye week to prep and plan.
Right.
Like, I'm going to be surprised, honestly, if we get into close to halftime. We're like, wow, Desai's kind of shut down the Chiefs' offense. Like, if the Chiefs are going to score, I feel like it's going to be the first half before then Desai goes, okay, hang on, we need to change some things at halftime. I hope I'm wrong. But that does need to kind of slowly morph into, as we go to this latter part of the season, you need to or want to see that in the early game, not the, okay, this is a little nerve wracking now. Are we losing? Are we kind of, threatened to lose this game? And you make the adjustments late. It would be nice to, all right, let's start it out from the beginning of the game and then keep that out throughout the rest of it. But I don't know. I mean, it's Andy Reid. We haven't beat him. It's what, 0-4. So you're feeling good about it. I mean, you said 49ers is more of the chance that we'd lose, or at least feeling as of right now. But do you think that this is the time? I mean, are we going to actually get that win in Arrowhead?
I think so. I mean, genuinely, I thought the Eagles were going to win every single game this year. They've only lost one of them. They're a very good football team, and this feels very personal. I'm with Dre Sings, first super chat of the night. Not worried at all. We move the ball through the air, and on the ground, go Birds. And it just feels like if there was a time to go into Arrowhead, to silence that crowd, to show up on national TV, and to get revenge. And listen, Mailata said it very, very well on WIP. A lot of people are going to just move on. I haven't. They're thinking about the confetti falling and all that stuff. They all are thinking that, right? There isn't a player in that locker room who was on the team last year who's like, yeah, Super Bowl, whatever. It's like, no, they all are extremely upset because they all should have won a ring. Think how many first-time Super Bowl winners would have been on that team. You only get one shot in your career. Some people don't even get to go. Ask the Dallas Cowboys. They've had a player go, on the actual Cowboy roster since before I was born. I mean, it's hard to go, and they lost in the last second. I think they're going to be highly motivated. If there was ever a week to lay an egg, it's not this week. There's no way it's going to be this week. Backyard Birds podcast. I think we beat all these teams. I think that they can. I think that they should. They would be favorites if it was at the link, right? Because the line is what? -2? That's just the Arrowhead factor. That's it. It's the only reason why they're underdogs for the first time this season. That's really it.
I think we could.
Ryan Grebe says, you can call an opening drive and a drive after the half, but he continues to not be able to think on his feet and use people he has advantage everywhere else. Still not sold. That's on Brian Johnson, I believe. I mean, I guess the one knock could be Gainwell, red zone touches still, and Hurts, red zone quarterback sneaks. Those would be my two still issues with Brian Johnson. But I mean, he's getting the football to his playmakers, right? I mean, back-to-back weeks, Devontae Smith passing touchdowns. Brown is A.J. Brown. I mean, maybe you make the argument Goddard wasn't getting fed enough. He's out now, so not really a factor anymore. I think he's done a good job spreading the wealth, right?
I think he has, yeah. I mean, there's a little bit we can nitpick to death.
Sure,
he could probably get a little bit better. Can he get other guys implemented into the game plan? Sure, but I mean, overall, the stats say that he's getting the ball to the playmakers more than Sykin did last season. So now, is that to a detriment? I mean, you could argue either way, honestly, because it's like, well, AJ is phenomenal and Devontae is really, really good, even though he's maybe not been as involved, but as good as AJ's been, it's like, heck, like Kelsey said, I mean, sometimes the offenses seemed like just throw it to AJ. Yeah. And you could say like, okay, is it a little bit too much force feeding? Is it after AJ, didn't ask for targets, whatever that, sideline argument was about. But still, I mean, AJ's scoring. Like, your offense is over 28 points per game, so you don't really have much of an issue besides the red zone. Like, that was the main constant we continue to bring up. Is like, you're scoring, you're putting points on the board, but you're just not as effective in the red zone. We got to get that fixed. Well, now what is it? It's like 12th, 13th, something in the league. I mean, I'd live with that. We don't need to be in the top. We don't need to be in the top 5. Like, as good as this offense can move the football down the field, it'd be great to. But we are in the red zone so often. Heck, give me 12. Like that should be more than enough. So I don't know. You could fine tune or nitpick, but to
Sure you
me, it's
could.
not as big of a deal. And Brian Johnson's just getting better. I think it's only going to get better as the season goes along. So I'm happy with the progression. I really am.
Whitebird Arches or Acres with $1 super chat. We appreciate that. Young Truth 512 with 2. Should we bring in Ken Dorsey as a consultant? No, because you don't bring in people in the middle of the season. It's just not something that you do. I know that last year they brought in Vic Fangio for a playoff run. That's a little different, but you would bring Dorsey in like they brought Matt Patricia in the offseason. Let him be a consultant if you wanted him. I personally think that the Bills' offense has been horrific, and Dan Orlovsky has chronicled this. I mean, every single morning on Get Up, saying they don't use motion. They do not help out Josh Allen. Now, it's Josh Allen's fault for throwing picks. It's very Carson Wentz-esque, and you ask any Eagle fan who Josh Allen looks like, it looks like 2018, 2019 Carson Wentz, where he can still sling it and still make some throws. You think back to that Commander game when it was like 2019, I think, and he threaded that ball to Miles Sanders in the back of the end zone, and you're like, that's the Carson Wentz I know, and then he still throws horrible picks and takes bad sacks. That's the Josh Allen we're seeing right now. Whole different story, but they're not going to bring in Ken Dorsey. Not at all. Now, does that mean that they should have fired him? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if firing an offensive coordinator fixes anything, but they had to do something because that team is probably going to miss the playoffs. They're 5-5, and their schedule, I was talking to this with my fiance, their schedule is horrific. I mean, they got to play us. They got to play the Cowboys. They got to play the Chiefs. They're not going to make the postseason.
Yeah, no, it doesn't either. I was mentioning to my brother too. We were watching the game, and I was like, he literally reminds me of Wentz. As sad as it is, like he's always had some kind of issues with turnovers, but it's to the next level. And
right,
I think one of my brothers was like, "Is he on drugs? What's he doing?" Because I mean, some of the throws you talk about, right? Like he makes one play is incredible, and the next play comes back, and you're like, he's telegraphed into Diggs the entire play. He's got triple coverage. Okay, well, just good luck. Throw that over there. So yeah, there's issues. As we know, I mean, the franchise quarterback, the guy is going to be the last player you give up on or the last person you give up on. So whether it was Ken Dorsey fault or some of the blame, partial, whatever, I mean, they had to make a change because, you're sitting there at 5-5 going, we may not make the playoffs now. So I don't know. It's sad. We've seen that. Like you say, we're used to it with a Wentz, but gladly and thankfully we're not as much dealing with that, although we would say Jalen had some struggles early on with turnovers. He's done better as of late, and I think we're going to continue to see that, and probably due to just the comfortability of the offense. So kudos to Jalen, kudos to Brian Johnson, because I would say Jalen does look a lot more confident than he did the first couple games, whether it was the play calling or just reading or whatever, or even the injury. I don't know, maybe he's gotten a little more used to kind of managing or dealing with that. But it's definitely been a lot better. So appreciate everybody in the chat too. I'm going to try to get all those. I know there's a lot coming in, but China says, Josh, I miss you. So glad the bye is over. All right. I appreciate that. Yeah. I wasn't necessarily a bye for me, but I mean, I appreciate it nonetheless. Also shout out to, I think it's Bzino28. I'm not sure if I'm saying that, but joined as a member. So welcome to the Let's Run It. There you go. Go Birds.
We're one like away from 100. So if one person out there wants to be lucky for 100 likes, that'd be pretty fun. How about Ukinez's super chat? Last night, almost got a speeding ticket, but the officer let me go because she said she was a Commanders fan and the Eagles had swept them this year. Is that a true story? Is that really what happened? How did you ask her? License and registration, please. Yeah, one sec. Who do you root for in the NFL? The Commanders? We killed you guys, right? We wrecked you guys.
I would love to know that.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's fun, though. That's fun. Shane Baker, flag goes fly.
Have you ever... There you go, Shane. What's up?
There you go. What up, Shane?
I was going to say, have you ever used your fandom? And maybe this is a good one for the chat too, but have you ever used or had your fandom work out in your favor? Not necessarily to the cop extent there, but in any way of getting anything at all? Nothing?
No, I've only ever been pulled over. You want to talk about cops twice. And one was because my registration was barely out of date, and he was like, just go do it. And I said, fine, my fault. And I forget what the other one was. I've never been pulled over for speeding. I had a roommate, though, back in the day who got pulled over probably 10 times and never got a speeding ticket, and they were all for speeding. I don't know how he got out of them, but he always did, and it was legit 7 to 10 times, and he was able to get out of them. So crazy. Ryan Great with 5. Red zone play calling so predictable. I can call the plays that are going to happen before they even line up. If I see it, other teams do. That's the Gainwell runs and the quarterback draws. I mean, we're not saying he's perfect, but Brian Johnson is way better than he was, and we got to at least give credit where credit is due, right?
Yeah, I think you have to. He's better. I don't know the Cowboys game. I don't know if that was as predictable. right? I
Right,
mean,
and
it's
Gainwell had a
gotten
red
less
zone
predictable.
touchdown run.
He
Yeah.
did. So
It's
that's the
gotten
hard
better.
part too. It's better. You're still going to see Gainwell in there probably maybe more often than we like, but
Mhm.
I don't know. It has certainly gotten better. So it's probably hopefully just in a continued upward trend at least.
Definitely in an upward trend. You know, we need to talk about Jalen Carter. I know a lot of people are very hesitant to talk about Jalen Carter. Let's talk about Jalen Carter for a second because I want to explain, because Josh and I both did a show on this, and I want to explain where we're at because I thought we'd hear something today. If you don't know what happened, Jalen Carter, there were a couple of people on Twitter who said that they had sources, most likely cop friends or people that worked at the Target. You know, it's like I know somebody who said that Jalen Carter was at a self-checkout at a Target in downtown Philly with a potential girlfriend. And this is where it's confusing. Either they accidentally walked out with groceries that they didn't scan, and then a security guard, didn't say police, I think it said security guard, had an altercation with them, and then they held him, and then someone made a phone call and let him go. But we don't know about intent. We don't know if it actually happened. We don't know any of that, right? But that video comes out from that mafia guy. I don't know his actual name, but he has 60,000 followers on Twitter. He's big into mafia crime podcasts, and
It's
he
like
has a
Jeff
legit
Nadeau
following.
maybe or something.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
So everyone's like, who is this guy? You and I both said, I have no idea who this guy is. Is this real? Is this not? My show went out on, what was it? Yesterday afternoon. I got a DM from the Jeff Nadeau guy, from the guy who broke this thing. He watched my show, DM me on Twitter, and was like, hey, man, like, this is real. Like, this actually happened. There will be a report coming out today on it. And I was like, well, if it's true, why hasn't any beat writer covered it yet? And he said, well, it's because the beat writers are all beholden to Philadelphia and to the Eagles, and they don't want to lose their good standing with Philadelphia, which that happens in the beat writer world. It really does. Not a lot of beat writers rip on the Philadelphia Eagles. It's very true. If you are actually at press conferences, you are not going to just rip on them because you're at press conferences and they can make you not be at press conferences if they want to. So this guy says it was for sure happened. You're going to see a report tomorrow. I haven't seen a report. I messaged him back to ask what's going on, but I'll be 100% real with you, Josh. It feels like something happened. This is not a made-up story. There have been enough, corroborating people to say there was Jalen Carter at a Target. Something happened. The question is it nothing? Is it something? But I'll be honest, I have no problem with E.J. Smith asking Jalen Carter at his charity event yesterday. I know that it's a charity event. It's about the kids, and props to Jalen Carter for having the charity event. But this is a big story. This isn't some random defensive player. This is Jalen Carter. He's an Eagle because of his off-the-field issues. He fell to 9. If you're having off-the-field issues right now, whether they were your fault or not, whether they're a big deal or not, we need to know about it. And I want to know what else is going on. I don't think that that's too much to ask. I'm not saying something crazy happened. He's not going to get suspended, but it is Jalen Carter. I mean, come on. Can we at least agree on that?
Yeah, I mean,
it's tough.
It's tough,
Sure.
and I'll disagree. I understand your
Okay.
point. I'll disagree though with the event with the kids. I understand you got to ask questions, and it's
That's
totally valid that you want to know or you want to follow up on something like that, right? It's
That's
Jalen
fair.
Carter, to your point. He's an incredible draft pick, one of the best. His past history with the speeding and the reckless driving and the incident in January. I mean, that's totally fair that you have questions, and everybody does. And all of a sudden, Jalen's name comes up, and everyone's like, "Wait a second, is this legit?" Now, the issue that everyone, I think, would attest to is in this age of information or lack of information, you can just blast something out there.
Very
and
true.
Who knows? Is it true? Is it not true? I don't know, because no one can officially prove it. So it's frustrating because a lot of times it's like, man, even if someone's like, oh, I've got the report or I'm going to get the report, it's like, I almost have to see visual evidence. Like, give me the video, let me see it. So I don't know. For that part, I'm like, a little bit skeptical until I actually see it. Now, again, to your point, I mean, there's starting to be more corroborating sources. So maybe did something happen? But for me personally, I mean, it's an event about the kids. It's a Thanksgiving.
I'll give you that one.
There's a line to me, and I understand everybody's is different, but there's a line to me of that you don't cross on. This is, and I saw people saying, hey, this was a PR stunt. This was planned like at least a couple weeks or months ago. So this is not Jalen Carter like, oh my gosh, if it was true that he got caught or that there was something that happened, him going, hey, let's have an event tomorrow and give out meals to 150 kids. No, that didn't happen. So I don't know. To me, I'd be like, you know what, wait, because EJ Smith is very in tune with Jalen Carter. For those that don't
Very.
know, like EJ's done several features. I think he went to Florida and stayed with him, or like got to meet his family for multiple days. He has a great feature on the Inquirer about Jalen Carter. So if there's anyone who's in with Jalen, to like ask him after hours, text his agent,
Sure.
text the party, whatever. And then you can come back and say, hey, I reached out to so and so, they didn't give me a response. That's about the same as if you're at an event and then all of a sudden you make an event about, Jalen's potential incident or whatever happened there. So I don't know. To me, I feel like you could have asked at a different point. I still would like to know, but I think as we both have talked about, kind of behind the scenes, ultimately, is it a massive thing, because there's so much misunderstanding and no one has the full facts out? Who knows? Until we get an
Right.
official report, it's hard to make a case on either side, really. I don't know, because we don't have the visual proof, and no one's provided the official police report, I guess.
Well, let's at least acknowledge what everyone else is saying in the chat is it's probably just a self-checkout not working. Jalen Carter's not stealing food, right? He got $27 million guaranteed or something stupid like that. He's not stealing food. I'm not saying that. No one's saying that. What I'm saying is that in the world of information, in the world of everyone trying to get a scoop, in the world of wanting to make sure that you are able to get clicks, where's the story on this, right? It's just strange. And my thing with the EJ Smith, and I don't want to talk about EJ Smith asking the question at, the Thanksgiving thing, because I agree with you, but Philadelphia doesn't go to the podium till tomorrow, right? And so in the world of trying to figure out what's going on, when else were they going to have a chance to ask? Because no one's been at the NovaCare complex the past couple of days. Even today, we didn't get a press conference today. I just want to know. I mean, to me, it feels like don't try and slide something under the rug, even if it's nothing. If it's nothing, then just be like, hey, here's what happened. It was nothing. If it's something, then you got to be honest with it, because, again, this was the reason why he did fall in the draft. Now, he's been fantastic in the community, in the locker room. Everyone's raved about him. I have no issues with him. I don't think he did anything wrong. I doubt, this is stupid to talk about. But it is still a story. Anyone saying that this is not a story, this is still something that will be brought up. I guarantee you they will ask tomorrow in the press conference. I guarantee you they will.
Probably so, yes. Because even after Jalen was drafted, Rube Frank was the one who had asked it almost immediately. I think the second or third question at press conference is, or to Jalen first. Then he followed up with Nick and Howie. But hey, how do you feel about the situation involving the incident in January? And again, I just. And Howie kind of went off on him. Like, if anyone doesn't remember, you go back and search it. But Howie's press conference right after they drafted Jalen was like, bro, this is, he didn't say bro, but he's like, this is the biggest moment in this kid's life. And you're literally sitting up here trying to ruin that. So, again, I get it. Yes, it's a story because people are talking about it. But at the same time, it's like, to me, kind of a time and a place for it. Ultimately,
fair enough.
We're going to eventually know about it. So, if it comes out, fine, and they'll deal with it and address it. But I think, like you even said too, we've seen from Jalen his heart, his true character. We've had Nolan Smith speak about it, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. I mean, the whole group that he's around and vouching for Jalen. So I really think, even if it is legit, I would side towards right now it was a misunderstanding. Who knows the full details? So I think we just wait and see till we get the official facts and details.
Philly Jake says, what's our injury report looking like? Well, they haven't given us an official one because they've been on the bye week, right? And we've had basically no information from Philadelphia in terms of who's healthy or who's not. We both of us talked about it on our shows yesterday. The only injury report we've gotten is that they put Goddard and they put Dean on the IR, which we knew that they would. And they went ahead and activated Justin Evans, which is, it doesn't guarantee he plays because they activated Cam Jurgens, last week before the Cowboy game, and he didn't play. But it does feel like Jurgens is back. Roby is back because he said that he would be. And then, of course, you're going to go ahead and most likely get Quez Watkins back. They're going to be as healthy as possible for this stretch. And I really think the extra week off, I don't know, I'm not an expert, I'm not a doctor. I think Jalen's knee is going to be dramatically better. Not having to cut, not having to run, not having to take a hit for an extra week goes a long way if it's some little nagging thing like we think that the bone bruise, the knee situation is.
Yeah. That's, the best, I can't remember who it was. Was it, maybe it might've been Ryan, honestly, but it's possibly someone else. So if I'm giving Ryan credit for it, then, good for you. But it's someone in the comment section that said, the best thing for a bone bruise is a week off. So I'm with you. You give him some time to heal, recover from that side. It couldn't come at a better time. We've talked about it, just the instance of being able to get that rest. And especially we look at early in the season when those injuries were occurring, we're both going like, how are we going to make it through this year at this rate? Guys are just dropping all the time. And so thankfully you are starting to get healthy. Of course, there are, a couple of injuries, certainly with the Nakobe Dean. But overall, you're going to be sitting there going, we have pretty much everyone here. Linebacker play, not to wish any injuries on anybody for sure, but just saying, play wise, Nakobe's been the worst linebacker out of, between Zach Cunningham and Nakobe Dean and Nicholas Morrow. So you're not really losing it in terms of production. But yeah, I think you see a lot better play. Excited about, getting the health and having that there too. So I did want to go back and mention just real quick, because we were asking, have you used your Eagles fandom in any benefit?
Oh, yes.
But China had said, I'm a mother and baby nurse. One of my patients requested me because her aunt saw my Eagles badge. I don't know if that counts. That absolutely counts.
That definitely counts. I think
if we were trying to, deliver a baby, I would absolutely, if I saw it, oh yeah, go Birds. All right. Can we request that? Absolutely. I love that. Yep, I got a free upgrade at my hotel the first time I went. The NFC Championship game.
Did they really upgrade you for free?
They upgraded for free. I was like, oh, heck yeah. I was like, yeah, hey, first time here. Go Birds. I was wearing the AJ jersey too, so that probably helped. But they're like, oh, you're Eagles fan? And they, heard the whole story. So that it's not bad. I was just surprised. So very good story.
That definitely counts. I am wondering if there's going to be a decent Eagle fan base, just getting ready for the Chiefs and Eagle game here for a second, how well the Eagles are going to travel. We got tickets for, 2 fans to go to the Eagle Chief game. That's the one that they chose when we gave away those tickets at the very beginning of the season. I think there's going to be a decent amount of green to contrast the red there at Arrowhead. My mom is a huge football fan, and she went to Arrowhead back in the John Elway days, and she said that it is crazy to go to, and I can only imagine what it's going to be like on Monday night. What do you think the big key is, though? Is it stopping Kelsey? Is it getting pressure on Mahomes? Is it the offense playing well against the good Chiefs defense? What's your big key going into this game on Monday night?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been thinking about this a little bit, and I'm going to probably talk about it more tomorrow too, depending on if and when we get a press conference and what the coaches say there. But personally, I feel like you haven't seen it a whole lot, but it feels like the Eagles struggle, especially with Andy Reid offenses. And we talked about that a little bit, but in the scheme that Andy Reid usually seems to beat you with is the spread it out and let Mahomes just pick you apart. Right. And that happens to a lot of teams, not just the Eagles, but specifically, if you go back historically, I think Jeff McClain had talked about that, or maybe had a little post on it, but it's to the sense of, if we see it there where all of a sudden you go, all right, are we playing 2 linebackers? Because all of a sudden, we saw it at least once, or I think twice, that CeeDee Lamb was matched up against Zach Cunningham. Like, those are the types of things. Is like, I don't care that the Chiefs don't have a CeeDee Lamb. If any receiver is matched up with Zach Cunningham, that is a loss. Like, that should never happen. So I feel like the thing that comes down for me is really defensively, because I'm not worried about our offense. I know the Chiefs defense has been playing better. Sure, whatever. I'm not concerned. I think the offense is going to play well. You're going to score some points. Ultimately, it just comes down to, can you limit Patrick Mahomes? I don't think that you're going to stop him. I think that's, virtually impossible. That doesn't happen very often, especially coming out of a bye week with an Andy Reid. But just, can you limit that passing game? Can you limit that attack of the Chiefs? That's what I think it comes down to. It wouldn't surprise me if you saw Desai go with more of a dime look and try to get a little bit more DBs out there, because otherwise, again, like we talked about, you get the mismatches, and all of a sudden you say, well, there it is, because the middle of the field's open because you're lining up a linebacker against one of those wide receivers. So can we get the pressure on Mahomes, which their O-line has been shaky the last couple of weeks, so I think that's a possibility. But then with them spreading it out, does Desai make those adjustments? So I really think, this is a big matchup for Desai. Like we talked about before, it feels like we were saying similar things before the Miami game, right? Like we were saying, this is the number 1 offense. Can Desai end up doing something there? But honestly, I feel like it's going to come down to that. And I don't know, as of right now, if you were to ask me, like, am I super confident in that? I don't really know, to be honest, because that's the main question or concern I think that we're all talking about. What about the pass defense? But what about you? Are you agree with that? Do you have another area I guess we should be focusing on, or what do you think about the game there?
Yeah, I want the offensive line to hold up against Chris Jones. The offensive line is great, and I'm very curious if Cam Jurgens plays. Getting a running game in this game, 100 yards plus from Swift would go a very, very long way. But we got to at least acknowledge, from an Eagle defensive perspective, the Chiefs have not been the historically great Chiefs offense. Let's just be honest, right? They went ahead and lost to the Detroit Lions. They only scored 20 points. They scored 17 against Jacksonville. Okay, blowing out Chicago's not that impressive. 23 against the Jets, 27 against Minnesota. They scored over 30 twice all season long. You go back to even last year, the Chiefs are scoring over 30 all the time. It's just like every single week. It feels like if the Eagle offense does what they've done the past couple of weeks, and they don't look bad against a very good Chiefs defense, and A.J. Brown can get open against Trent McDuffie, who's one of the better cover cornerbacks in the league right now, they're going to win this game. And the Eagle defense, I think, can have some success. What was the key going into the Super Bowl? It was a historically great sacking team, pressure team, getting to Mahomes. What did they not do? And honestly, we all agree the field was pretty rough. They didn't get after Mahomes at all. This is not Arizona's field anymore. I know Kansas City's field is not necessarily fantastic, but it's way better. Are you telling me Hassan Reddick's not going to show up? You're telling me Josh Sweat is not going to show up for this game? They are the two players who are going to show up the most. Jalen Carter is going to show up. Fletcher Cox is going to want to get out there. They are going to want to punish Patrick Mahomes for the fact that they were unable to punish him during the Super Bowl. And if they get 4 or 5 or 6 sacks of Patrick Mahomes, that offense might stall because they can't run the ball and they can't really throw the ball unless Kelsey catches 13 passes for $130 and 2 touchdowns, right? I think that they can win this game. I think Philly might win by more than 4.
Oh, all right.
7? I don't know why. I feel very confident.
How much are we talking about here?
I really do.
Pretty bold.
I think 7. 7.
I like it. I like it, though. My bold prediction, I tweeted this. I know you saw this, but my bold prediction was Nolan Smith's going to get a sack. That's not a surprise.
What a surprise.
I'm cheering for that, but you know, I'm speaking it into his existence. So Nolan Smith is going to get a sack. And if he does, to your point, I mean, there's a lot of extra motivation, right? Because with the field conditions and everyone saying, "Oh, hey, what about that pass defense or the pass protection of the Chiefs being able to lock up the Eagles in the Super Bowl and all that?" You know, because again, they're not going to give credit to the field being a mess and neither team being able to have footing. But still, you can prove a point here. Like you can go into Arrowhead Monday Night Football, primetime, national TV, and say, guess what? This is legit. If we're on a level playing field, pun intended, but if we're on a level playing field, it's going to be a lot more of a hectic day. It's going to be a night for Mahomes. So I hope we see it. I wouldn't surprise me if we do. By the way, I got to just real quick to Rattlesnake 7173. That's the credit for the week off comment, not Ryan, even though Ryan, he said he can't take credit for that. So there you go. Rattlesnake. Sorry about that. I knew it started with an R.
I like Jason Blessing's 34-24. Yeah, I could see that. I really could. The AFC is so hard to kind of gauge right now because you say Kansas City is the best team right now. They're the 1 seed, but they obviously have Patrick Mahomes. Besides you take Patrick Mahomes off that team and you put Josh Allen on the Chiefs right now, or you put Lamar Jackson on the Chiefs right now, they're not that good. I mean, it's a very mediocre offense. It's a very mediocre offense, and they were able to get past it last year because I don't know, maybe they ran the football a little bit better. Juju was not a completely useless player like he is this season. You know, forget he's even in the league. But their offense kind of needs a weapon. And Kelsey's getting older. It doesn't mean he can't ball out, but I don't know. Maybe I'm not giving them enough respect. I just feel like this is the game that the Eagles are going to absolutely show up at and really, really, really try to not just win, but dominate. And if they dominate, then all bets are off. I mean, every power ranking you see, every person like Dominique Foxworthy who was saying that, oh, well, you know, Dak's best quarterback in the NFL right now, it all is silenced on Tuesday morning. Yeah. It's all done. It's all done. Eagles are the best team. The NFC will go through Philadelphia. You have to beat Philadelphia. You want to win a Super Bowl, and we'll finally get the respect that we deserve, despite the fact that we're 8-1. I think this is it. I really do.
Yeah. Can we be honest about that too? The respect that we deserve, yet it's what, 7th in the power rankings, or so, depending on which one you look at. The analytics for ESPN says 7th, and the power rankings have us at 5th or 6th in some others. So yeah, the lack of respect for a team that has the best record in the NFL is ridiculous. So it's a point proven. I'm with you. Yes, if it ends up being that, certainly if it's a 34-24. So shout out to Jason. I think he's gotten some very close predictions. I know that Jason's usually there during the lives, but usually it feels like if we're maybe in a like mini freak out moment, he's like, hey, this is going to happen. And then it's actually turned out to be true. So I hope you're right, Jason. I really do. I don't know if I've fully come to terms with like an official prediction. I'm probably right now somewhere probably a little bit closer than your prediction there, but I'd love a dominating performance. You win by multiple possessions and take care of business. I agree on paper. Like you look at the team and like you're talking about there, I mean, it's just, there's not a whole lot of dominance. Like if you can slow down or you can shut down Travis Kelce, then where's the offense? Like what is Mahomes going to be able to do there? But I don't know. To me, it's the Andy Reid factor. Maybe that's just the pause or the cause for concern to say, we just haven't beat him yet. And you give him a bye week, we know how dominant he can be. So even though the pieces may not be fully there, I don't know. I'm hopeful. I'm thinking that we can win. I just expect it to be very close. I expect it to be a dogfight in that game.
Remember, the Chiefs have not had a 100-yard rusher since week 4 against the New York Jets. I mean, literally, like Pacheco's last couple of games, 60, 40, 32, 62, 55. They can't run the ball. If Philadelphia can make them one-dimensional, I know I'm not saying that Patrick Mahomes is not good when he's one-dimensional. He's very good. But if you can just pin the ears back, pass rush, you're up 10, it's 5 to go in the third quarter, and start to get to him, they can win this game. They can definitely win this game. I'm very excited. Very, very excited. Keep a spy on Mahomes, bracket Kelsey, game over, says Jason Blessings. That feels like the move. Now, if it was that simple, they wouldn't have multiple Super Bowls and, be the number 1 seed in the AFC right now. I mean, it's easier said than done. But, yeah, I mean, that does feel like kind of the way to do it would be bracket Kelsey and make Sky Moore beat you, right? I mean, name another Chiefs receiver besides Kadarius Toney. Can you name one? Who's the other guy?
Is Justin Watson still even...
They have that Rice guy, don't they have their Rice guy?
Rashee Rice, yeah.
Rashee Rice, yeah. I mean, geez, we're really Noah
Justin
Gray.
Watson was the other
a tight end, I guess. He's not really a receiver, but still, yeah. What's gonna happen?
Yeah,
I think we do rush a lot and control the game,
lot.
says D. DeShero. The run game has been a problem for Philadelphia. It's not been good. It's not, and it needs to get better. And until Jurgens comes back and they still struggle, we can't fully say that the run game was broken until we do know that Jurgens is not the reason that they were actually good before he went out. I mean, that's the one missing piece right now is Cam Jurgens. We have to see Jurgens back in, and if they run the ball well, then Jurgens is the missing piece. If they don't run the ball well, then the run game is going to be a little bit of an issue going forward.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, there's a lot riding on Cam Jurgens, whether he knows it or not. I mean, just to play is going to be great, yes, and I'm sure that he's not going into it saying, "Oh, I better fix the run game."
Right.
But still, it is an interesting piece, for all of us talking about it in the media and, just looking at the stats, because we know it's not been great. And we're hoping that the difference is going to be Cam Jurgens, because you can just see all the numbers whenever he was in the lineup. But I don't know. I do feel like it'll be better, but will it go back to where it was previously, like the exact numbers? I don't think so.
I don't know.
I hope it does, but there's something to me that feels like it threw it a little bit off, and maybe it was Jalen's lack or kind of inability to run the football while he was injured, to kind of make it a little bit more one-dimensional. So when you're running the RPO, it's like, the defense knows he's pretty much not going to take it, and even if he does, he's not full speed. That's a possibility there, but yeah, there's something that needs to change within that. But I am very interested. One of the kind of side stories of the game will be how good's the running game with Cam Jurgens in there.
Not your typical Leo. Sorry, he says according to Nick, the run game was good. Is that Nick Wright? Nick Wright is the biggest Chiefs homer.
No, I think it's Sirianni. Sirianni.
Oh.
Yeah, he said he was asked kind of multiple times, and he was like, no, he's like, it's good. He said he kind of used the same Brian Johnson, extension of the passing game, and we've talked about that a little bit, but. I get it when it's like a quick toss forward, like that makes sense because that's basically a run, but it's counting as a pass. But a lot of the other times, I'm sorry, because I think was it Dan Orlovsky who had done the breakdown of RPOs and like Brian Johnson not using them near as much as Steichen did last year. Yeah, so I get that there's some RPOs, I get that throws it off, but overall, I mean, when Jason Kelsey is saying there's a problem and kind of disagreeing, then I'm like, well, I'm probably going to lean with the offensive lineman who's in the trenches, realizing and understanding, hey, we're missing some blocks. Like there's opportunities that we as an O-line unit are not taking care of. So I don't know. I mean, I love Nick. I love Sirianni, the cheerleader that he is, the emotion, everything else. I mean, he gets the guys to buy in and all that. But sometimes, his job as a head coach is to just kind of like keep everything level. It's not a huge issue. It's not a concern. Whereas, the players involved in it, like Kelsey, can sometimes get emotional. And he even said, he's like, hey, we need to get this fixed. So again, you're coming off the bye, you're a little bit more healthy. You make some adjustments. I mean, let's also talk about too, like the self-scouting that gets done. Every NFL team does that.
A lot.
But this is huge. You've got Sirianni and Brian Johnson who are saying, okay, we're going to scout Desai's defense and Desai who's going to scout Sirianni and Brian Johnson's offense and figure out the holes and the gaps and, hey, where do we get better? Where do we improve? I'm interested to see too. I mean, this is a big adjustment or, potential big adjustment that you see coming out of the bye. Do you expect, to see some areas from, I guess, both sides to be able to kind of project or show what's going to be changes moving forward?
Yeah, I remember Sean Desai saying that he hasn't been able to couple weeks ago. I can't remember which press conference, but it felt like they're still working on installing some more stuff, right? Because it takes time to get defensive players comfortable with certain defensive play calls and defensive schemes, and maybe they have some extra stuff shoved up their sleeve to get ready for Monday night. If there was ever a game where you kind of pulled a Bill Belichick, who was always great at this until the past couple of years at not doing what you would think that he was going to do, right? If the defense always plays zone, then he would play man against you. If he always played man, he'd play zone against you. It feels like if there was ever a game to really throw a wrinkle, to really look different than you had the first 8 weeks, it would be against Kansas City. And keep in mind, I mean, the low right now in Kansas City, I saw this comment from Michael H. saying it's supposed to rain. Yeah, it's supposed to rain, 65% chance at Arrowhead. The low is 34. Man. I mean, it's wow. A runner's night, right? And
well, I feel bad for the people that I can't remember. Dave, I think, won the tickets. Maybe that's not going to be the most comfortable. But
yeah, but I mean, if you got to make one team run, you would think Philly running would be the team you want to make run, right?
Totally.
I hope that would run.
It should be, yes. Yeah. In years past, what we've seen this O-line unit with Stout, that is absolutely setting up for success. That's totally what you want the game to be. If you have to run the football, for sure. Hopefully we see it. You get a little bit of changes in there. I don't know. I saw comments earlier too. This always comes up every time we talk about the running game. But Rashad Penny, I mean, we saw 2 carries against Dallas. He had one that was pretty good. Okay, I guess. But they're not saving him for a postseason run. They're not saving him for later in the year to all of a sudden, we've got a fresh running back. This dude is they just don't like what they see. Like, let's be honest. Like, they just don't like what they see enough to get him out on the field for a Kenny Gainwell or for DeAndre Swift and or a Boston Scott for that matter. I mean, the only reason that he got on the field was Boston Scott out for a personal reason or personal issues. So, I don't know. I would love to see it. I'd love to see more of maybe not a full game, but more of a complete game where you let him stay in for a series or more. Yeah, to get a little bit more of a flow to say, can we even answer that question? But evidently, from what they've seen just in practice, that's enough to say, no, we like what we have. We're not going to go with it.
I think it's his speed. I think it's his initial burst that's the problem. You go back and watch the Seattle film. That's what he was good at. He was thick and he was rumbling and stumbling, but he would find a hole and he'd be 30 yards down the field in a blink of an eye. I haven't seen that. And I know that Ryan just mentioned he's at 8 snaps this year. So, how much time have you had to actually see it? But that would be my guess. Is it just like, okay, there's a hole. Can you get through it fast enough? He's not able to do it faster than Kenny Gainwell or DeAndre Swift. They would play him if he was better than those two. And it's that simple. And I'll be honest, I think Philly will probably draft a running back in this coming draft. I don't think Swift's been as crazy as we thought he was the first couple of weeks. He has 100-plus yards a game. It's like, he's the greatest thing in, since sliced bread. And then since then, he's barely gotten over 60 a game, and you can make blocking can be a thing. I think they probably draft a running back. Gainwell's clearly not the answer as RB1. But if there was a game where you needed them to be great, this is going to be the game. I really, really hope so.
Yeah, definitely need the running backs to play. And I guess to the point here, Deshero says he can't block, period. And that's true. I mean, in the very limited sample size we've seen, but you could go back to Seattle. I mean, Penny's not a great pass blocking or protecting the quarterback type of back. So, I mean, I get if he doesn't see the field too much, but I mean, if you're talking about a cold, freezing rain type of game, I don't know if there's ever a game to throw him out there to potentially have him active. I don't know. It makes sense to me. Just, play him a couple carries, even if it's just 4 or 5 carries, something like that. But yeah, the running backs in general, they haven't been too great. Like you say, even DeAndre Swift, he had some really good games early on. It's hard to tell. I think a lot of us realize that, but it's hard to tell a lot of times with a running game. Is it the O-line? Is it the running back? Is it a combination of both?
Right.
I mean,
it's hard.
Heck, we can look at Miles Sanders, who I wasn't the biggest fan of Miles Sanders, even whenever he was here. But, I mean, point proven, the O-line really helped him to become what he was versus, you have him over in Carolina and they don't even really want to play him. So I think it's always those are in tandem so much. And, running backs are slighted for sure, without a doubt. I mean, the running backs should be paid more. They're used incredibly, and then all of a sudden they're just discarded. But still, it's like, to what extent is that on the O-line and what extent is on the running backs? I think it's a little bit of both, but, we'll probably see or hopefully have a better answer like we've been talking about once Cam Jurgens goes in there. Hopefully a little bit better holes, maybe better blocking, but we need that for sure with the game the way it's going to be.
Young Truth 512, $2 super chat. Shout out to you. Take care of the ball. Take less penalties. LFG. It's that simple. I like that. Sounds good to me.
All right.
Vanny, shouting out here for 2. Penny's the key. Dak is half the man his mom was. Okay, well, I don't know about that, but I don't know if Penny's the actual key. I don't know if
Wow.
Rashad Penny's the secret to winning the Super Bowl.
Well,
I think he's going to be fine. And the real MVP just said the Jets just released Michael Carter. What about picking him up? Well, the Cardinals did, so you can't. But Philly, there are plenty of people who would love to be an Eagle right now that the Eagles don't want to sign. So if they needed him, they would.
yes. Yep. That is very true.
John Doe says, what about the Bill Belichick to the Commanders rumors? I would never give Bill Belichick the keys to my organization after what I've seen the past couple of seasons. I mean, he has maybe the worst draft class in recent history last season. Go look at the Patriots draft class. It's one starter and the rest are absolute garbage. And he's the GM. He has never drafted a good quarterback besides Jimmy Garoppolo. He's never drafted a good wide receiver. I mean, I'm not going to take away from the fact that he was great when Brady was there and it was a good combination. His defenses were really strong. I would never want Bill Belichick running my office, running my organization at his age with his recent record, especially if I had draft picks. No thanks. I hope he goes to the Commanders because it's not going to make a difference. He is done, and he should really retire and live with the legacy that he built when Brady was there.
Yeah, yep, I'm with you, and that'll start the argument or possibly the comments, as we're already seeing. DeShero says it was Brady, not Hoodie, and then who was it that had the dynasty? There's some of both probably, but yeah, I'm with you. At this point, whether it's just being in it too long, not making a stance, or just not being able to do anything, I would be happy as well. Go to the Commanders. To me, Belichick is not the intimidating coach that he once was. If you have a one game that winner take all, but the problem is you can't win the games during the regular season to even get to that point. So to me, sure, you know what? If the Commanders want to trade away assets or just figure out a way to get Belichick or whatever, not too concerned about it.
Yeah, well, listen, anytime you can't draft to save your life is a big problem. In a modern NFL where you are paying quarterbacks a lot of money, you have to hit on draft picks. You have to hit on Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and Sidney Brown and Tyler Steen. You don't hit on those players, you're in big trouble. Howie's hit on them recently. Other people haven't. Big difference why. Ryan Grebe says, any running back will look bad when they don't get touches. How many touches has Swift lost since his huge weeks early on in the season? True. But you do have to make the most of it. I'm very, very behind the idea that you have to get momentum as a running back. You have got to show that you are continuing to make positive carries. And they've tried to get Swift going, and he hadn't been able to. And I'm not blaming Swift for that. I'm blaming the offensive line as part of it. I think it's 50-50. But it's not like Swift is busting 20-yard runs. He hasn't had a 20-yard run in feels like forever. We need to get back to that. And whether it's the offensive line fault or his, I don't know. But I do think that Swift is not the same player that he was earlier on, and he's not this superstar steal running back that we thought he was for a mid-round draft pick when we got him from the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to be, like we've been talking about.
Good.
If the O-line gets to the playing level that we want it to be, that Stout and Kelsey and all the guys want it to be, you've seen what this team can be with the dominance. So, yeah, I agree. I wouldn't say he's not upper, he's not the top in the league. He's not one of the best running backs, but again, you get the blocking down, you get the play style, it's not going to be an issue. I think that it'll be fine. So I don't know. It's Xavier Ragland with the $1 super chat, and then I followed it up with a comment here. So it says, we need a faster running back and a Kelsey 2.0 come draft time.
Maybe.
I don't know I don't know where you fall on this. I don't know that we need a faster running back. I think Swift is
I don't know about that.
You could take a better running back, like the argument that we've been making, but honestly, speed-wise, now Penny's not fast. If that's the reference there, sure, I understand. Penny doesn't have the speed, but for speed-wise on a running back, not so much.
It does feel like, though, hang on, I'm thinking about this. It does feel like if there was a time to splurge high in the draft for a running back who could be like a tier, a McCaffrey, a Henry, a Barkley when he's healthy, it'd be the 2024 draft, right? I know Howie would never do it, but when you look at rosters and teams that take running backs who shouldn't take running backs because it doesn't impact your overall, like Atlanta taking Bijan Robinson, right? Fun, right. Bijan's great, hasn't made a lick of a difference whether they use him or not at wins and losses, okay? You should have taken Jaylen Carter, right? Everyone feels that way, or Christian Gonzalez or something like that. But a team that is really built well, like Philadelphia is, I know they never will. They'll get a center. They'll get a pass rusher, a corner. If there was ever a year to get the number one running back in a draft class, I feel like 2024, just to see what it would look like with Jalen Hurts healthy and an elite running back and these weapons on the outside. I know they won't do it, but if there ever was one, I would do it, honestly.
Yeah. I mean,
They
I don't
they
know.
never will.
They
But if
won't.
there
Yes,
ever
I
was a year
agree.
to draft Saquon Barkley again, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this would be the year. But they won't.
It's exciting. It's an
Be
exciting
fun.
prospect, and I know that
Be fun.
we were on the Bijan Robinson train. If Jalen Carter, because there was no thought that Jalen Carter was
Right.
going to be available, but
Right.
the fact that he
Right.
was, you lucked out. You got a better pick than any of us could have imagined. But yes, it's an exciting thought. I don't know. To me, it's like it kind of goes in with so Xavier says Kelsey 2.0 come draft time. I feel like you can't say Kelsey 2.0, but Cam Jurgens is supposed to be that, right? I mean,
He
like
is.
I
He is.
feel like he can transition into that element. He's very athletic. He will move to the center position. That's what you've groomed him for. Very smart. Kelsey's hyped him up, said he could be able to take over. He could be a good center when the time comes. So I think he's played well at guard, but the idea, the goal, the thought in this is he slides over to center. So I don't know necessarily you draft a Kelsey 2.0. Now, I would say possibly draft a Lane Johnson 2.0 because
Yes.
timing wise,
And they probably will.
that would be where I'd want to go because you never know with the lineman how long is Lane going to keep playing, and plus it's I guess it's the idea of buying a car, right? It's better to buy a car when you don't need one rather than showing up to the lot and saying, "Hey, I need to buy a car." Like it's not going to work as good in the draft. So I say you go with that. Realistically, I mean, it feels like we know how he goes with the trenches, so it seems like he would just either go with an O lineman, maybe a D lineman. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It's fun to pick the skill players. It's fun potentially to add to the roster with the predict or with not a predictable pick and get an offensive playmaker.
The problem is there isn't one in this coming draft, right? Like Blake Corum, he's probably the best running back in this entire draft. It's not like there's anyone. Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, they're not in this draft, and that's kind of the bummer part of it. But I don't know. I just see the potential. They will take a right tackle or they will take a cornerback. That seems to be. And honestly, this past draft class, if you could duplicate where you have, what was it, Christian Gonzalez went 17 or something like that, and then the guy from Illinois went, kind of back there as well, and they're really, really good. That's who you feel like they would reach for and move up from 32 to go get, because then you get a starter level cornerback who can play right away. But again, it's not draft time yet. We'll talk about that in a couple of months. So a couple more questions here. We'll wrap it up. We're over an hour. Vandy says Penny Swift 2-back would create havoc. They did start to kind of give us the Swift Gainwell 2-back, and then a nice run on that against Dallas on the right side. But yeah, I'm all for it. But will they? I don't know. We'll see. I love having two. I think 2-backs on the field at a given time is always dangerous, but the Eagles, for whatever reason, don't do it as often. But, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've seen a little more creativity. We're talking about Brian Johnson and the difference that we've seen or the progression that we've seen throughout the year. So I say anything that throws off the defense, obviously get those playmakers involved. That wouldn't be surprised. It'd be nice to get some guys in there. But yeah, I mean, overall, like we've been saying, I'm not really concerned with the offense. Like it's really the defensive side of the ball at this point. When we're scoring enough points, if the defense can take care of business, and also let's give credit too. It's not only that the offense is scoring, the offense is taking forever, like in a good way, but they are taking forever on these drives where all of a sudden, like, we're doing the live show or the live games, which by the way, if anyone's here and has not checked out the live streams, we live stream during the games, have a blast. We nearly had a heart attack, as probably everyone did in the Cowboys game, but come hang out Monday night. But yes, during those, I mean, you see it all the time. We're sitting there going, wow, well, a quarter's almost over because you just had an 8-minute drive all of a sudden. So that helps out the defense. It really just comes down to, can the defense get a few more stops, make those adjustments maybe earlier in the games, and then also can we get a few more turnovers? Because what was it, like the first 2 or 3 games we're going, hey, this is very opportunistic defense. And then as of late, I mean, you can technically count it. Yes, the Eagles got that last forced fumble or fumble recovery by Reed, but that was, I mean, it's kind of a luck turnover. I don't really call that a forced turnover. It's the last play of the game. CD's got to toss it somewhere. So overall, I mean, couple turnovers in like 5 games? That's you'd hope to see a little more. So maybe we get that in the second half here, especially with the gauntlet coming up.
Andrew says with 10, Andrew, we appreciate that. Shout out you. Trey Benson or Milton from Georgia are running backs I'd like how to draft. We all know he's going to go get their heir apparent to Lane, an edge rusher. We all like Trotter. He's a day 2 pick. I think Trotter is a day 2 pick. I know he's like the sexy name. He's like, oh my gosh, Jeremiah Trotter, which I agree. I think it'd be fantastic. But we're so far away, man. We have got to get through February, March to start actually talking about where are you drafting, what do you
Oh, yeah,
need?
yeah.
Where are you at in terms of, did you win a Super Bowl? Did you not? It's all going to come there. So,
But for
and
people
then,
who are curious, the game plan, the
sure,
schedule is
sure.
we are gonna go to the Super Bowl. We'll speak it into existence. We're gonna go to the
Yep,
Super Bowl. We're gonna win that. We're gonna have a
yep.
massive draft coverage, and we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna have a blast. We're gonna have a party. We're gonna draft Jeremiah Trotter and everybody else that we want to. So
Yep.
that is the goal.
Place to be, right here. Place to be. Make sure you guys sub to both channels here. We'll do one or two more, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Slay had that pick six, then disappeared. Yeah, boy, pick six in this one. He'd love to get one on Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes has thrown a
Gosh,
couple.
yeah.
He's thrown a couple.
He
You
has.
look back at
Hey,
the
he's
Denver game.
turning it
He's
over
thrown
quite
a
a bit.
couple. Am I too confident? I feel like I might be too confident.
Are you?
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I like the confidence. To me, it's like there's, I don't know, even last season, like maybe it's just the bias or whatever, but I feel like going into the Super Bowl last year, like there was not, last year was more of a, and I texted you this before we made the playoff run. I was like, I think we'll win one playoff game because it's the Giants. Like that's going to be easy. But then I was like, after that, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out this team because we had all these good wins, but then I was like, are we slipping up? Are we having some struggles with the offense a little bit? Because again, Jalen hurt and then come back and struggle against the Giants to get into that one seed.
Mm-hmm.
There were just little questions. So even going into the Super Bowl, it was like, yeah, but it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Andy Reid. I'm like, yeah, there's a little skepticism, but I don't know, the second matchup now and the fact that we should have won that game, it was so close, the dominance, and then like we talked about, I mean, there's not the names that really scare you at all. So I don't know. I could see being confident. I keep coming back to the only thing that gives me pause is just the fact that it's Andy Reid and there's just not been the success there against him. So I like the confidence, but I feel like I'm at the point where like we will win, but it'll be an extremely close game. I think it'll be a really, really close one.
Let's wrap up with score predictions. I say 27-21. I think they win by 6.
By 6 points. I like it.
Yep.
Man, what am I going to go with here? I'd say probably, I may say 24-21.
Okay.
Use relatively the same score, but I think it'll be a field goal.
There you go. All right. We're going to wrap up for the evening, gone for over an hour. Be sure, of course, to be with us on Monday evening. We're going to be live for a pregame, live during the game, live after the game as well. It's the best watch party, trust me, you can possibly watch. It's going to be a bunch of fun. And we're going to have shows again. There were no shows by either myself or Josh today. Wasn't much going on. They're back at the podium tomorrow. Be sure to sub and look for our shows the rest of the week. It's going to be a whole bunch of fun. So for Josh Davis, I'm Thomas Mott. We sign off. See you guys on Monday night. Go Birds.
We'll see y'all. Go Birds.